What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Chris Evans here with Zero Meter Chasers live on this beautiful Monday afternoon here in Kentucky. Looking at the Kentucky Mesonet website and seeing the beautiful weather that we have outside currently with dew points in the lower 50s. Something that we have not seen in Kentucky in a while. Very comfortable temperatures as we have gotten into our Monday afternoon. As we look here in Hardin County, you will see the temperature is 73 degrees outside with the dew point 54 degrees. If we look at the camera on the bottom right there, you'll see some of those popping cumulus clouds, but no rain chance as we get into our Monday. If we look over here in Western Kentucky, this is in Marshall County. Temperature is currently 75 degrees. And again, you can see some of those popping cumulus clouds, but again, no rain chance. And if we look over here, for those of you near Lexington and Fayette County, again, beautiful temperatures. Temperature only 68 degrees with a dew point of 49 in Fayette County. So we have very beautiful temperatures, very comfortable weather as we get into our Monday. And that looks to be the theme kind of as we get into our Tuesday. So what I'm going to do here is kind of look at some model data with you guys, kind of look at what the model data is showing as we get into Monday and Tuesday, and then kind of get into a more active weather pattern as we get into our Wednesday and Thursday. It does look like we're going to get a little bit more active. I do think the overall severe risk is going to be further north and west. Not really in Kentucky. I am a little concerned. We'll cover it here in this video about our severe risk maybe overnight on Wednesday, but it'll be nothing really compared to the severe risk that we will have to the north and the west in Illinois and Indiana. But here's looking at the HRRR on the Weatherfront website, and it is showing those beautiful dew points will continue as we get into the afternoon on our Monday. Dew points will be into the lower, the HRRR has them in the lower 40s. Really, they'll be in the lower 50s as we get into our Monday. But then as we get into our Monday night, you'll see we start to kind of increase the dew points a little bit, but not really too much. So as we get into our Monday morning, you'll see we'll have dew points in the mid 50s. We'll have temperatures around 60s, the mid to upper 60s as we get into our Monday or Tuesday morning. And then as we get into our Tuesday afternoon, guys, it looks like another beautiful afternoon, especially early afternoon and the more south that you go. I do think we'll have an isolated storm chance as we get into our Tuesday, and I'm going to cover that here in a second. But our dew point, if we go here and look at the dew points for Tuesday, again, the HRRR is showing dew points in the mid 50s, and even in eastern Kentucky here in the mid to upper 40s. Which again is an anomaly for June. I mean, this is not a typical June-like pattern that we've had here in Kentucky or really anywhere across the United States. It's been a really weird pattern as we've gotten through our June. But as we get through our Tuesday, you'll see we do start to increase those dew point values a little bit, especially along I-64 and along the river. In Western Kentucky and along I-64, we will see those increasing dew point values. And I do think that that could lead to a possible storm chance as we get into our Tuesday afternoon. So if we look today, we have no storm risk here in Kentucky. If we look tomorrow, you'll see the SPC does have a marginal risk kind of draped across portions of Indiana and Illinois. This does include St. Louis and Indianapolis. This is for like a little mini low that's kind of spinning across the area. As we get into our Tuesday, again, like we just kind of looked at, I just don't think the severe risk will be that high in Kentucky on Tuesday because our dew points are so low. We're still not having that high moisture return yet. So that we're not going to have really a high severe risk as we get into Tuesday. Although, since we do have that increasing humidity, I do think we could have some storms here where that marginal risk is, maybe some storms, but the best risk for any storms on your Tuesday will definitely be in North and West Kentucky. And then as we look to the Wednesday here, and I'll kind of zoom out a little bit, you can see the SPC already has a day 3 enhanced risk all the way from Kansas City to Indianapolis. So a very large day 3 enhanced risk. And we have been covering this here. Myself, Chris Evans, have been covering it on my personal page, on Twitter a lot. This does look like another severe weather outbreak for the upper upper Ohio Valley region. And it does look like the same areas that kind of just took that tornado outbreak on June 11th. So I am watching that closely. I might have a storm chase day activated for this. Not 100% sure. I am working really hard on the back scenes to get my stream set up for you guys to be continuously live on YouTube. I am really excited to be able to do that, to be able to kind of have you guys in my live streams and to have continuous eyes in the sky when storms hit in Kentucky. I'm working really hard on that, and I'm hoping to have that before my next chase. I don't think I'll have it before Wednesday. I'm still working on some things with my laptop to be able to set up a camera so I can stream off of that. But I will be live on X on Wednesday if I do decide to chase the setup. Just wanted to throw that out there. So kind of looking ahead, I kind of wanted to look at Tuesday and cover the storm chance that we have here on Tuesday. So as we look at the HRRR and we go ahead to our Tuesday, you will see, remember, we were just looking at the increasing moisture values as we get into our Tuesday. And then if you look at the HRRR, so we kind of fast forward, because again, we're going to have no precipitation in the area until we get into Tuesday afternoon. As we look here around noon, you'll see exactly where the SPC has that marginal risk posted is where some storms look to fire anywhere from St. Louis to Indianapolis around noon to 1 o'clock. And those will slowly drift south and east as we get into our Tuesday. And again, where those higher dew point values, they're kind of in the 60s near Evansville, near Paducah. I think that's your most at risk for a storm chance as we get into our Tuesday. But anywhere in central and eastern Kentucky looks very dry as we get into our Tuesday. I do think this could even be overplayed on the HRRR a little bit. I mean, again, when we just looked at the moisture values were in the lower 50s, in the upper 40s in some of these areas. So again, I just don't think we'll have the moisture to support a big storm threat. But that we did have 60-degree dew points there in Evansville. I kind of show that. We'll back it up to about 6 p.m. And I'll show those dew points one more time here to kind of show again where you kind of see where that storm threat is going to be as we get into our Tuesday afternoon. It'll be draped kind of here in northwestern Kentucky and near the Boot Hill of Missouri and southern Illinois. So I do not think anybody in central or eastern Kentucky has to worry about a storm threat as we get into our Tuesday. So if anybody has any questions about Monday or Tuesday, please put it in the chat right now. I'm able to put up any comments on the stream, and I can answer them in the stream. So if you have any comments about your specific location, please be sure to put that location in the chat. You put it in there at any time, and I'll come back and answer your question when I'm able to. But if we have no questions about the setup, it's a pretty easy setup as we get into our Monday and Tuesday. More of an isolated storm threat as we get into west and northwest Kentucky, but not much of a storm threat anywhere else in Kentucky. So if we have no other questions about Tuesday, I did want to kind of briefly cover Wednesday here. And Wednesday looks like a very potent setup. And I will say it's an anomaly type of setup as I get everything going here for you guys. It is not a normal setup for June. When you have a jet streak like what I'm about to show here in June and you overlap it with the dew points and the moisture that you have in June, not good things happen. A severe weather outbreak does look likely, in my opinion, as we get into our Wednesday. So as we get into Tuesday, I'll kind of zoom out a little bit here. And this is our jet streak, or basically just our jet stream or the wind energy that we have in the atmosphere. And you can see right now, this is a decent amount of wind shear as we get into our Tuesday. But again, because we don't have that moisture, it's not a really high severe risk or any type of storm threat as we get into our Tuesday. But as we fast forward this here on the Euro, this is at about 5 p.m. And you can really see this jet streak really start to exit here anywhere from eastern Iowa into central Illinois. And as we get, especially overnight, anywhere from 11 to 2 a.m., that jet streak really starts to increase. And this is looking at the 500 millibar. If we go to the 850 and we back it up about an hour here, you can see how strong. Here's our low pressure all the way up here near Minneapolis. And the wind field is very strong with this, especially in Indiana and Illinois. And this is why the tornado risk is so high in this area. Because this jet streak overlapped with the intense moisture that we have, and we've continue to have in Kentucky has continued to have in Illinois and Indiana will lead to a significant severe weather outbreak, I think, as we get into Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday evening. But if you look here in Kentucky, that jet streak doesn't really focus over us. It is more focused over Illinois and Indiana. But as we get into overnight on Wednesday, this jet streak kind of the low is still all the way up here to the north, but it kind of attaches to the front here. And as this, you can see the front clearly here near Indianapolis. And that jet streak just ahead of the front is very, very strong. So if I zoom this in, you can see this very clear here on the Weatherfront website. Anywhere from St. Louis to Indianapolis to Cleveland is where your front is currently. And then here is your strong jet streak right here. Anywhere from Indianapolis to Columbus to Cincinnati to Louisville as we get into our overnight on Wednesday into Thursday. And this is what is it's not as concerning of a risk where that enhanced risk is in Illinois and Indiana, but it is why we do have a marginal risk posted on Wednesday. If I go ahead and pull that up here, I want to pull it up one more time. You'll see that marginal risk posted for Wednesday anywhere along the Western Kentucky parkways and north. And again, the major severe weather outbreak will really occur anywhere from St. Louis to Columbia all the way to Indianapolis. So in the upper Ohio River Valley really looks under the gun for Wednesday, but we will get the leftovers as we get into Wednesday night and overnight on Thursday. So we will have to watch that closely because of how strong that jet streak is and still having those strong 850 winds as we get into the overnight period on our Wednesday and very early on Thursday. We'll have to see what kind of forms and where the line forms and just the overall evolution of Wednesday afternoon and evening, because all of that will kind of come to us as we get into our Thursday or Wednesday night and into Thursday. So what I wanted to do now is kind of look at the euro for a second. So here's the euro. We'll kind of let it load up here. As we get into Tuesday, it shows just like the HRRR that isolated storm threat as we get into our Tuesday evening, Tuesday afternoon in northwestern Kentucky. That'll move off. And then as we get into Wednesday, if we have a morning complex like the euro is showing, that just like last week will determine greatly what type of severe threat that we have in Illinois. Now, I will say we'll look at some more model data here in a second. Not all the model data is showing this complex or any type of complex of storms in this portion of Illinois on Wednesday afternoon or anytime on Wednesday morning either. So the data is still everywhere kind of with this setup. Just kind of depends what you look at. But the overall setup, again, when you look at that jet streak, kind of centered from St. Louis to Indianapolis, overlapped with very strong dew points, very high dew points as we get into our Wednesday. I did want to show that on the euro here. So if we look, this is 11 a.m., and you'll see the moisture starting to increase in Kentucky, especially in western Kentucky. We have near 70-degree dew points. And as we get through our Wednesday, the dew points, especially up here in Indiana or Illinois, I mean, Illinois really looks to be under the gun with mid-60 to upper 60 dew points. But here in Kentucky locally, you'll see the dew points don't really start to increase until we get to late Wednesday night into early Thursday morning, which again is an increasing signal. When you have that jet streak, the 850 winds that are increasing around 2 a.m. on Thursday morning, along with this increasing of moisture as we get into Thursday morning. I just think, I know some of the models don't show some things along the front right now, but I do think that we will have some type of severe risk, especially along I-64 and along the river on Wednesday. And even though it's a 2 a.m. setup, this is an anomaly type of setup. We don't usually have a jet streak that is increasing from 11 to 2 a.m. with increasing moisture from 11 to 2 a.m. So this is not a normal setup in Kentucky. I want to continue to say that. And as we looked at 2 a.m. on Thursday, you'll see it is a broken line of storms on the euro. And that's very interesting because this could still be supercellular with how strong the wind field is. So it's a broken line of cells anywhere from St. Louis to Indianapolis to Columbus. And I will say one thing I've noticed on the model data, I'm going to show one more model data for Wednesday as well, is I think anywhere from Louisville to Cincinnati is more at risk. I do think anywhere along the Western Kentucky parkways and north are at risk. It just depends on this evolution. It just depends on how much back builds on this front and how much convection do we really have in Illinois. Because if you look at the overall track of this as we get into our Thursday morning, everything is kind of pointing off to the southeast. So we know we're going to have a lot of convection up here in Illinois and Indiana because of how strong that jet streak is, and that's going to kind of move southeast. So it just depends. We'll have to look over here near St. Louis and Quincy late afternoon, late evening on Wednesday to kind of determine and see exactly what type of severe risk we will have. But again, when we have the jet streak that we have and the dew points that we have, I just think we could have a couple of severe storms as we get into overnight on Wednesday and early on Thursday. So we'll just need to keep an eye on that. So other than that, when we look, the real interesting thing that happens on Thursday is I want to go to the dew points real quick. You'll see the front kind of comes in here, trying to come in here with a bang. You'll see it up here. Here it is at 2 a.m. In central Illinois. And it tries to move in here early on Thursday. And it's moving. And then you'll look here on Thursday, it tries to stall in Kentucky. So we have that moist dew point wherever this boundary kind of sets up, and where the dew points kind of set up will determine where the severe risk or any storm risk could be as we get into our Thursday. But it's interesting to see the model data show this front kind of stall as we get into our Thursday. And to kind of, again, look at our Thursday, to look at the Euro again, I want to zoom out and show one more important thing as we get into our Thursday and Friday. And again, this is why it's kind of an active weather pattern, because it's not a normal weather pattern in Kentucky this week. This is not normal. So if you look down here in Louisiana, you'll see what might become the National Hurricane Center has given it a 30% chance of being a named tropical system. And if it does not become a tropical system, it'll be a weak low pressure here late on Thursday night that is going to try to kind of throw some moisture northward as we get into late Thursday and into Friday. And when we look, we have that low pressure that's kind of throwing that moisture northward, and we have that stalled boundary up here, especially as we get into late on Thursday. It's an interesting setup to see if we can get any type of severe storms with a setup like this. Just with the low pressure kind of throwing that moisture, it just depends on if we can destabilize or not on Thursday. So I do think we'll have a storm risk on Thursday as well. With that front stalling like that, the wind streak, if we look at the jet field on Thursday, or the jet streak on Thursday, it's definitely not as strong as it is on Wednesday in Illinois. So you'll see it's kind of moved off. Again, everything is kind of moved off to the north and east, and we're just kind of stalled along that boundary. So we do have some wind shear, but not a lot of wind shear. But then again, this low right here that kind of throws that moisture back northward at us with the stalled boundary could lead to some, maybe even a flash flooding risk, maybe a repeated risk of rounds of showers and storms as we get into our Thursday. So that is kind of what I'm looking at here in Kentucky. I did want to show the impasse model real quick, which is one of the best short range CAM models to kind of give you guys a look. It has not ran yet for the 12Z. So this was last night's data, but the impasse is really good. And I did want to show that jet streak again as we get into Wednesday here. So here's Wednesday at 6 p.m. Again, this is just looking at our wind field. And you can see, especially as we get into overnight, and it is interesting because this is at 2 a.m. on Thursday when the impasse is kind of showing that strengthening of the 500. And if you look at the 850s as well, I mean, it's a very strong 850 jet streak overnight, anywhere from 8 to midnight. Here in Indiana and Illinois, and compared to the Euro, that's pretty far north with the 850 compared to what the Euro had. But again, a strong jet streak as we get into our Wednesday. When we look at kind of the reflectivity here, I'm going to back it up a little bit. Here we go. So this is, again, 11 or 10 a.m. on Wednesday. Again, we'll have to watch and see if we have any convection in Illinois. That could determine the severe risk up here. That, again, was kind of the main reason why last week kind of played out the way it did. That morning convection kind of laid out that outflow boundary, which storms kind of latched onto in the afternoon. So if we do have storms in the morning on Wednesday, if anybody's watching from Illinois or Indiana, we will have to watch and see if that lays over a boundary for any type of storms or supercells in the afternoon. But again, here's the impasse kind of showing widespread convection in the open warm sector, which is interesting at 4 p.m. We'll see if the 12Z run kind of shows that as well. But there is your convection that kind of blossoms here around 4 to 6 p.m. I do think that this is going to go linear pretty quick. I think that the line, or I just think the risk for supercells might not be as widespread as some of the model data is showing. So we will see that a lot of the data has kind of this linear look as we get into Wednesday night and Wednesday evening. So we'll kind of see. But as impasse kind of goes forward here, you'll see those storms don't really weaken as we get into overnight Wednesday and early on our Thursday. So again, another model data kind of showing, especially near Indianapolis, if you're in Southern Illinois or Southern Indiana, I still think that the severe risk is pretty high just because the wind field is increasing and our dew points are increasing even as we get into overnight on Wednesday. Now here's Thursday at 5 a.m. The impasse does show a line of storms pushing through Cincinnati and Louisville. And remember, that's kind of where I just talked about where I think the highest severe risk will be overnight Wednesday into Thursday. As of right now, this could still shift. Again, we'll have to see how much convection kind of fires here from St. Louis to Mount Vernon late Wednesday night into Thursday. But that will kind of determine the severe risk in central Kentucky. But I do think if you live along the river in northeast Kentucky or along I-64, anywhere from Louisville to Cincinnati, I do think you will have some type of severe risk. Damaging winds look like the main risk with the setup, but you could still have an isolated tornado or two just because of how strong that jet streak is. So that's kind of looking at 5 a.m. And then if we fast forward here, you'll see again that boundary stalls, and it looks like a repeated rounds of showers and storms as we get into our Thursday morning. And this, again, is as far out as this model data goes. So we really need one more day to kind of get locked into the cams. And to kind of get a full visual on what Wednesday night into Thursday will look like. But I kind of wanted to give you guys a quick heads up on exactly what we're looking at here at Zero Meter Chasers and just an active weather pattern that looks to be taking shape as we get into the end of the week. Thursday depends on leftover boundaries and air mass recovery. Looks pretty zonal with mid-level flow. The storm chance is possible for the region. Yeah, I agree 100%, Mike. I think that it looks like Thursday is going to be more of a repeated rounds of showers and storms as we get into our Thursday. Again, when most of your Wednesday is dry. I think all of your Wednesday is dry. This is looking like an overnight setup on Wednesday, which is awful for a forecaster because that's when most people are going to sleep. I hate overnight setups. I hate when we have overnight setups, and it seems like we have them a lot here in Kentucky. So I hate that we're having another one here, but we'll just have to watch the model data. Again, I think the further north and west that you go on Wednesday, the more likely you are to see severe weather. I think that is the most likely chance. We'll just have to watch to our northwest, and we'll kind of see the model or see the radar as we get into Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday evening, and we'll kind of know where the highest severe risk will be. So that's kind of all I got for you guys. I will give you guys a couple minutes here to throw any questions you have in the chat. If you have any questions, you can be sure to put it in the chat. I really appreciate everybody joining here. We do these live updates pretty daily, especially when the weather gets active. We'll have another live update tomorrow where we will have more cam data that is more available to us. So that will kind of help us determine the overall risk on overnight Wednesday. So I don't think that this is overall a big risk in Kentucky, but I do think that the slight risk, and I will show that severe risk real quick while I give you guys any chance to put any questions in there. I do think that the slight risk could get pushed a little bit further south. Maybe southeast, especially as we get into overnight on Wednesday. But remember too, the spillover. So the Wednesday outlook is only, I think it's only active for like Thursday morning at 4 a.m. So then our Thursday threat would be, or our day 4 risk would be for whatever's left over on Thursday. So we'll see exactly where that highest confidence is as we get more cam data and more model data in the next couple of days. But I do think that the further north and west that you go in the state, the higher the severe risk you have in Kentucky. And I don't think that this is a high severe risk. We haven't had very many severe risks in Kentucky. But we'll just have to watch, I am watching another sneaky risk this weekend as well. And then after that, it does look like we might get into a June and July like pattern, maybe as we get into the end of the month. But I do think that we'll get active. I do think we'll have to continue to watch this setup as we get into Wednesday night into early Thursday. So if we have no other questions, I really appreciate everybody joining in here. And again, 0 Meter Chasers will be live with chasers on the ground with any severe weather threat that happens in Kentucky. We're really working hard. We're working behind the scenes to get you guys some new things. We have something that's coming very, very soon behind the scenes that I'm very excited to release. But we're waiting on the approval to kind of release it here. So when we get that release, we'll definitely get it out to you guys. And I'm really excited for it. So again, we'll just watching that severe risk as we get into your Wednesday, and then possibly a severe risk. If we do have a severe risk on Thursday, I know I haven't shown the day for that much. It is going to be in Eastern Kentucky, kind of closer to where that jet streak was. Remember that jet streak is more further east as we get into Thursday. So I think Eastern Kentucky is most at risk for severe storms on Thursday, but we will have repeated rounds of showers and storms as we get into our Thursday in Kentucky. So that's all I got for you guys. I really appreciate everybody joining in here. And again, we'll have live updates and more updates for you guys here at 0 Meter Chasers. And I hope everybody has a safe and blessed day. Thank you, guys.